The movie starts with the beginning of World War II. Norway, a calm country, chooses to stay neutral in the global fight. However, the small town of Narvik becomes important because it supplies iron ore to Germany. Great Britain wanted to stop this supply. In April 1940, British Marine forces appeared in Norwegian waters. In response, some Norwegian soldiers, including a man named Tofte, are sent to Narvik to act as guards, keeping the country's neutral stance. But Norway's neutrality has already been broken. Tofte, who is from Narvik, is excited to go home and see his family. When they arrive, the soldiers are sad to hear that their day off is cancelled. Tofte wants to celebrate his son's birthday, so he asks for special permission to leave, which is granted as long as he returns by midnight. Tofte rushes to see his wife Ingrid, who works at a local hotel as a waitress and sometimes helps as a translator because she knows German well. On this day, a meeting is happening at the hotel between the town mayor, the British consul Ross, and the German consul Fritz, discussing agreements over the ore. After meeting Ingrid, Tofte spends time with his son, Ola, and his father, Aslak, while waiting for his wife to finish work. When the meeting ends, Ross asks Ingrid if Fritz said anything important when she translated, but she has nothing to tell him. After the meeting, the family has a meal together. After Aslak and Ola go to bed, Tofte and Ingrid share some private time. Tofte falls asleep and wakes up suddenly to the sound of explosions nearby. After saying goodbye to Ingrid, Tofte runs outside to find the coast on fire. He meets his colonel, who tells him that their ships were sunk by the Germans, scattering their marines across the harbor. Tofte joins his comrades to defend the town, but the colonel, after talking to the German leader, learns that the rest of Norway is taken over by the German army, leaving them with little hope. To avoid more deaths, the colonel decides to surrender and tells his men to let the German soldiers pass. The Norwegian soldiers are then told to move to a new meeting point, as going back to their base would risk capture. The next morning, Ingrid goes to work and finds Ross's assistant sneaking in, saying it's a matter of life and death. When Ingrid reaches the reception, she finds out that the German army has taken over the hotel, and Fritz needs her translating skills. He also demands all the room keys. Ingrid, sensing danger and refusing, agrees and asks about her husband. Fritz assures her that the Norwegian troops left peacefully. Meanwhile, Tofte's group is leaving town. The Germans try to stop them, but the colonel ignores them and they keep marching. Back at the hotel, a few German soldiers come in through the back door. Ingrid distracts them with breakfast, giving her friend and co-worker Bjorg a chance to help Ross and his assistant escape. Before leaving, Ross asks Ingrid for a safe place to hide. Ingrid, worried about her son's safety, refuses to take them home. Instead, she suggests a cabin in the mountains and sends Bjorg to guide them there. When Ingrid returns home, Aslak suggests they should leave town. Ingrid is worried about Tofte, but Aslak reminds her that the soldiers have left and won't return as long as the Germans are there. They go to the harbor and find the water filled with the bodies of fallen Norwegian Marines. They also find that the ferry is not available, so they have to take the train. At the same time, Tofte and his team are walking along the train tracks. The major finds out that a part of the bridge was supposed to be destroyed, but they can't find the dynamite. He asks Tofte for help, knowing that Tofte used to work at the train station with his father before joining the Neutrality Watch. Tofte, not knowing about the dynamite, calls his father for help. Aslak tells him where the dynamite is, but also warns him about an incoming train carrying Ingrid and Ole. Tofte tells his superiors and suggests blowing up the bridge after letting the train pass. However, the major refuses, saying the train carrying ore to the Germans must be stopped. Suddenly, they hear noises from the tunnel. The soldiers get ready to fire, but it's civilians who couldn't catch the train because the Germans stopped it. Tofte quickly greets his family before directing them to hide in the other tunnel. He then helps his fellow soldiers set up the dynamite, which means he has to climb the beams supporting the bridge. Inside the tunnel, most civilians keep moving, but Ole convinces his mother to wait for Tofte. Just then, the Germans arrive and start shooting, killing several Norwegian soldiers. The major orders the explosives to be detonated before Tofte can climb down, forcing him to jump into the snow to avoid the blast. Soon after, the Germans find Ingrid and Ole. Since Ingrid speaks their language, they are spared and not captured. On her way back to town, Ingrid learns that the Germans have taken several Norwegian soldiers as prisoners of war, including Tofte. Back in town, Ingrid leaves Ole with Aslak before being called by Fritz, who needs her to translate for the mayor again. Fritz knows the mayor tried to send a telegraph and wants to know why. The mayor says he tried to warn the British about the invasion, but was caught by the Germans. Fritz says the British won't come as long as the Germans are there. The mayor wants to evacuate the remaining civilians, but Fritz forbids it. The mayor leaves angrily, saying he will take over the pedestrian tunnel to use as a shelter. Later, while cleaning up, Ingrid accidentally breaks a glass. Fritz, noticing her nervousness, asks why, and Ingrid says she's worried about Tofte. Fritz promises to see what he can do. Sometime later, Bjorg visits Ingrid, saying Ross has requested tobacco and specifically asked for her. At first, Ingrid doesn't want to go, but Bjorg points out she can't handle everything alone. Ingrid goes to the cabin in the mountains, and after giving the tobacco, Ross asks her to spy for them. Ingrid refuses at first, but Ross threatens to tell the Germans that she's hiding him, leaving her no choice but to agree. Ross believes his ships are better, but needs her to find out how the Germans plan to defend the city against a land attack. The next time Ingrid serves coffee to Fritz and his men, she notices the drawer where they keep their maps and plans. Suddenly, there's an explosion at the harbor, and Ingrid sees the British attacking. She rushes out and joins Aslak and Ole in a basement with the neighbors for safety. When the battle ends, it's night. Ingrid goes back to the hotel and learns that the British have sunk all the German ships but haven't landed yet. She thinks they're waiting for her information. She helps care for the wounded soldiers and asks Fritz about Tofte. Fritz explains that the situation is too tense to ask for favors about the soldiers who destroyed the bridge. Since Fritz won't help, Ingrid decides to use the distraction to sneak into the office and steal the maps and plans. After Ingrid takes the maps and plans, she gives them to Ross. He quickly makes copies and sends his assistant to give the important information to the British forces. With the original documents, Ingrid heads back to town. German soldiers stop her, but as a hotel worker, she has the right papers to move freely. They let her pass. As Ingrid is about to enter her home, an explosion shakes the town, pushing her back. The British forces have already started their attack using the information she provided. Ingrid's house is now in ruins, and she searches for her family in the rubble. Sadly, she finds Aslak dead under the debris, and Ole is alive but badly hurt. 4 weeks later, the Germans fortified Narvik, making a ring around the town. The French and Polish troops have arrived and are getting ready to attack from the north and south. But first, the Norwegians need to neutralize the German positions in the mountains. In Rosme, Tofte and his fellow Norwegian prisoners are forced to work in the cold by the Germans. One of them collapses, and Tofte fears they might be killed if they don't complete. He encourages his friend to stand up, reminding him that Bjorg is waiting for him to return. The Norwegian soldiers are sent to the trenches, and when the French forces suddenly attack, the Norwegians care for the wounded. Tofte uses this chance to steal some food and hears others talking about the attack on Narvik. This conversation sadly reveals to him that his father is dead. Tofte wants to know if Ole also died, but enemy fire interrupts the conversation, and the Norwegians use this moment to escape. The Germans notice the escape and try to stop them, but the French forces get close enough to kill the captors and rescue the Norwegians. Tofte quickly gets a gun and helps the French eliminate all the Germans in their path until they finally leave the trenches. Tofte finds his old team and the mayor working with the French. He learns they will go back to Narvik, but first, they must defeat all the Germans in the area. A week later, civilians are caught in the crossfire between German positions and British ships, so they take refuge in shelters. Ingrid continues to care for Ole's wounds. One afternoon, Bjorg tells her that the Germans are searching for people hiding the English and are also looking for Ingrid. Leaving Ole with Bjorg, Ingrid goes to translate for another meeting between Fritz and the mayor. Fritz wants to know where Ross is and doesn't believe the mayor when he claims he doesn't know, leading to the mayor's arrest. A small explosion hits the side of the hotel, but they ignore it as it has become routine. Fritz invites Ingrid to stay with him at the hotel, but she prefers to be with her son. Later, Ingrid is devastated to find Ole unconscious and burning with fever because his wound is infected. She takes him to the hotel and begs Fritz for a doctor, but Fritz refuses, saying the soldiers are the priority. Desperate, Ingrid offers to reveal Ross's location in exchange for medical help for her son. Moments later, a doctor tends to Ole's wound, finding a small piece of metal inside it. Bjorg shows up to warn Ingrid that the Germans have captured Ross, but when she sees a doctor helping Ole, she realizes what Ingrid has done. Ingrid assures her that she didn't implicate her. 2 weeks later, Norwegian and French soldiers attack the Germans in Rombaksfjord, their last stop before Narvik. They think they will do well because of Ingrid's information, but the Germans are waiting for them and immediately open fire. Tofte helps his friend reach a safe spot, and the group realizes they are at a big disadvantage. They try to retreat, but the major fires a shot into the sky and threatens to kill anyone who acts cowardly. To win, they need to destroy the cannons. Tofte takes 2 men and climbs the hill via a hidden road at the back. They eliminate the guards and enter a tunnel where the Germans shoot at them again. The Norwegians throw a grenade to kill most of the enemies and shoot the survivors before planting a bomb inside the cannon to destroy it. Afterward, they go back outside and announce that the cannon is down, allowing their team to advance and win the battle. In Narvik, the Germans start preparing to leave. Fritz asks Ingrid to go with him to Berlin, warning her that the Germans will retaliate with air raids. Ingrid refuses, reminding him that she has a husband. Fritz shows her a list of prisoners, revealing that their Norwegian slaves were lost in action. Devastated, Ingrid runs to her son and is found by her boss, who comforts her and gives her all her pay so she can leave Narvik with Ole. Meanwhile, Norwegian and French soldiers celebrate their victory, seen as Hitler's first loss in World War II. Later, the group finally returns to Narvik, and the citizens welcome them proudly. Tofte is shocked that Ingrid isn't there to greet him, and Bjorg explains that Ingrid has had a hard time after dealing with the Germans. Tofte goes to his old house and is hurt to find it in ruins, but he is relieved to see Ingrid and Ola inside. The family reunites with hugs and kisses, but Ingrid quickly reminds them they need to leave. Tofte demands an explanation, and Ingrid confesses what she did to save her child. She doesn't feel guilty because it was a British grenade that hurt Ola and killed Aslak, but Tofte is still furious and calls her a traitor for betraying the people who protected the town. Ingrid reminds him that no one was there protecting Ole, and when Tofte points out that people die in war, Ingrid says it would have been better if he never came back. Ingrid tries to leave with Ole alone, but German planes start bombing the area. Tofte rushes to drag his wife and child behind a wall for safety and tells Ingrid this is her fault. Screaming is heard outside, and when Tofte checks, he is distressed to find his best friend dead. The mayor arrives with the rest of the soldiers to discuss new tactics, but Tofte only has eyes for Ingrid, who is leaving with Ole. At the harbor, citizens are trying to leave on the next boat. Because they heard rumors about Ingrid's betrayal, they push her out of the way and don't help her when she falls. Ingrid begins picking up her things, thinking she will always be alone, but suddenly a pair of hands appear to help. It's Tofte, who has quit the mission to be with his family. There are enough fishing boats to take all the civilians away before German bombers destroy the city. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.